Does PTSD last forever? Great question. Let's talk about it. This video, I am going to answer the age-old question of does PTSD last forever? And we're starting right now. I get this question a lot, but to properly answer the question, I need to dig a little bit deeper. And what I mean by that is I have to get to what somebody is actually asking me when they ask, does PTSD last forever? Hey, I'm Dr. Harry McCleary, licensed clinical psychologist, Navy veteran. And if this is your first time here, my channel is dedicated to educating veterans, service members, and their families about mental health. So make sure that you subscribe. In this video, I'm not just going to answer the question, does PTSD last forever? I'm also going to answer all of the questions that may be underneath that question. The first question that's often underneath or behind the question of does PTSD last forever is the question, will I ever forget about the trauma? I'm going to give you a straightforward and short answer here. The answer is, unfortunately, no. I often tell the people that I work with that if I took a brick and hit you in the back of the head, you'd probably still remember. And the reason for that is with traumas, we're constantly thinking about them. We're constantly asking ourselves questions about them. And even when we're trying to block out thinking about it, that actually means that we're thinking about it. And what that means is that infinite connections are happening in your brain. Infinite parts of your life are now connected to the trauma. So will you ever forget about it? No, not even if I hit you in the back of the head. The next question that may be underneath the question of does PTSD last forever is the question, if my symptoms go away or my symptoms get better, do I still have PTSD? Great question. Since the majority of mental health disorders are based upon symptoms, technically, if you no longer have those symptoms, you no longer meet criteria for that disorder. And PTSD is no exception. I made a whole video on what the symptoms of PTSD are, so if you're interested, I'll link that down in the description. Now, we can get down in the weeds, and I can even argue with some people in my field of whether somebody no longer has PTSD or they have PTSD and it's in remission. Either way, not having PTSD symptoms or a lessening of PTSD symptoms is generally a good thing. If you're getting value out of this video, go ahead and give it a like, so YouTube will show this video to another veteran or another service member. But more important than that, if you're getting value out of this video, share it with a veteran buddy. This may be a bad analogy, but I'm going to use it anyway. Think about someone who has cancer, and then they go and get cancer treatment, and they tell them, you're cancer free. Or they tell them that your cancer is in remission status. Both are good news. Now, what it doesn't mean though is that if somebody has had PTSD in the past, if somebody's had depression in the past, it doesn't mean that those symptoms cannot potentially come back. That's not what it means at all. And it even may mean that that same person may be more susceptible to developing PTSD or depression in the future. Just like somebody who has cancer, even though they may be currently cancer free, is more likely to develop cancer in the future than somebody who has never had cancer. That, unfortunately, is the reality. The next question that may be up underneath that question of does PTSD last forever is the question, does PTSD ever actually go away, or do I just learn to deal with it? Often the road to PTSD recovery is a hard one. So common questions often circle around, well, am I going to have to do this hard work forever? The short answer is kinda. And I know that that is a typical psychologist answer there. But what I mean by that is, will you have to manage symptoms as they come up? Will you have to manage fluctuations in your mood as they come up? Will you have to manage when you think about or are triggered by the worst time in your life? The short answer is yes, you will have to do that. But I can also argue that that's actually just life, and that we're always managing our symptoms. We're always managing the stress in our life. And when we stop managing things, that's usually where we get ourselves in trouble. So will you have to manage your symptoms? Will you have to manage your life for the rest of your life? Yes. Can it get a lot easier to manage with skill building and treatments? Hell yes. And it can get so easy that for some people, it doesn't even seem like they're really working on it. But I can guarantee you, they are. The last question that may be up underneath that question of does PTSD last forever is a deeper question. And it's a question often that people ask themselves prior to or early on in treatment. And that's, will my PTSD symptoms ever get better? This is a great question because it speaks to the motivation towards treatment. The reality is, I've seen a lot of civilians, a lot of service members, a lot of veterans with PTSD. And never has any of them came into my office and said, man, I can't wait to work on my PTSD and tell you the worst thing that's ever happened to me. That's never happened, and I'm guessing it never will happen. So what people are actually asking me when they ask, does PTSD last forever, is can I help them? Will this ever get better? What I say is yes. With treatment, PTSD symptoms can get better. So if you're a veteran or a service member that's thinking about getting into PTSD treatment, but is questioning whether their symptoms can get better or not, the answer is that they can. And we have a lot of different ways to start attacking those PTSD symptoms. Not all of them involve coming to talk to me either. Sometimes you can get treatment from a group. There are medications that can help. But the first thing is you have to recognize that PTSD symptoms can actually get better. But it is going to take some work. It might take you doing things and talking about things that you don't want to. That's normal. But if you're going to ask, does PTSD last forever? My answer to that is it doesn't have to. Something to think about. If this video was helpful for you, and I hope that it was, please like it or consider subscribing to my channel if you want to learn more about PTSD and mental health. But more important than that, if this video was helpful for you, well, that means it can probably be helpful for another veteran or another service member or another friend or family member of a service member. So I ask that you share it with them, because at the end of the day, that's really what all this is about. One veteran trying to help another.